He came to say goodbye to the son he'd already lost. But as the millionaire stood by the cold marble of the grave, he wasn't alone. Across the cemetery, a young woman wept, clutching a little girl who wore the same necklace his son once did. Every sob from her broke the silence deeper than any prayer. Who was she, and why did that child's face mirror his own son's? Before the day ended, one encounter would unravel everything he thought he knew about family, forgiveness, and the quiet cruelties that draw invisible lines between us. Thomas Reed had built his life on control, numbers, deals, and perfectly pressed suits. At 58, the millionaire banker measured success in square footage and silence. His mansion on the hill overlooked the same town where he'd grown up poor, a world away from the restless streets he now drove past without looking twice. But grief had a way of stripping everything down. 3 months after losing his only son, that silence had turned from peace to punishment. He told himself the morning visit to the cemetery was just habit, a ritual of love. Yet today felt different. The air was heavy, the sky bruised with gray. Something lingered, an unease he couldn't name. And as his expensive shoes sank into the wet earth, he didn't know another life, one too easily ignored, was about to collide with his own, forcing him to face the very world he'd spent years pretending not to see. Thomas had planned to stay only a few minutes, just enough time to whisper the apology he could never say in life. But as he laid the white lilies across his son's grave, he heard the sound, soft crying carried by the wind. Not polite sobs, but the kind of tears that come from years of hurt. He turned. Across the row of headstones stood a young black woman, holding a little girl close. Her clothes were worn, her hands trembling as she tried to steady the child. Thomas almost looked away. Grief was private, after all, but something stopped him. Around the little girl's neck hung a silver charm shaped like a star. The same design he had given his son on his 8th birthday. It couldn't be. The woman noticed him staring. For a moment their eyes met, and Thomas felt an odd shame he couldn't name. She pulled the girl closer, her expression wary, defensive, as if she expected judgment. The gesture twisted something inside him. He wanted to ask who she was, but she turned, guiding the child toward a modest car parked on the far edge of the cemetery. As the engine sputtered to life, Thomas caught a glimpse of the sticker on the windshield, a neighborhood he knew all too well. A place his company had redeveloped, displacing dozens of families. Families who had looked like her. A sick feeling crept up his spine. Was this some cruel coincidence, or something more? He couldn't shake the image of her eyes, tired, cautious, the same guarded stare he had seen from people who had learned the world owed them nothing. Over the next few days, he couldn't focus. The board meetings blurred, numbers lost meaning. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the child, the charm, the pain etched into that woman's face. Finally, he drove to that neighborhood. The streets were cracked, the air thick with smoke from a construction site bearing his company's logo. Children played near rubble while their parents watched from porches of fading paint. He had built fortunes tearing down people's homes. The next morning, Thomas returned to the cemetery, the questions burning too deep to ignore. The woman was already there, kneeling beside the same grave where his son rested. Only this time, she was at a smaller headstone just beside it. Fresh flowers, a small teddy bear, a picture of a boy. Her boy. He must have been no older than 7. The same age, the same smile. Thomas stood frozen. Carved into the stone were words that punched the air out of him, in loving memory of Jordan Miller, taken by violence at Westview Park. He knew that park. His company had funded its surveillance system, the very one that failed to capture the attack everyone had dismissed as gang-related. A lie his firm's PR team had quietly packaged and buried. And now here he was, staring at the cost of that cover-up, a child's grave next to his own son's. 2 boys, 2 worlds, divided not by fate but by privilege and skin. The woman rose, eyes red but steady. "You were his father," she said quietly, voice trembling between anger and sorrow. "They said no one cared enough to fix what happened." Thomas wanted to speak, to say he hadn't known. But the truth was worse, he hadn't wanted to. His success, his comfort, all built on looking away from pain that wasn't his. The weight of it crushed him. The flowers slipped from his hand, scattering across both graves. He fell to his knees, the cold earth pressing against him like judgment. For the first time, the millionaire who ruled cities couldn't find a single word worth saying. Tears blurred the line between marble and dirt, between his loss and hers. Two graves side by side, one remembered, one forgotten. And as silence spread across the cemetery, only one thought echoed in his mind. How many more buried truths like this would it take before men like him finally saw? In the weeks that followed, Thomas disappeared from boardrooms and glossy magazine covers. The shareholders called it a personal leave. No one knew he spent those mornings walking through neighborhoods his company had once erased. Windows boarded up, murals fading, people still fighting to be seen. He didn't come as a savior. He came to listen. To learn the names behind the numbers he'd once signed away. At the cemetery, he replaced the stone border dividing his son's grave from Jordan's, planting flowers that grew across both plots. It wasn't redemption. It was recognition. Two children, one story society tried to keep separate, bound now by truth instead of illusion. The young mother never forgave him outright, but one day, she nodded in passing. That was enough. Thomas began funding scholarships in Jordan's name, not for headlines, but for the futures the world too easily discounts. Yet deep down, he knew writing checks was only the first step. The real work, unlearning the blindness that comes with privilege, was a lifetime task. In that silence between graves, the meaning had become painfully clear. Racism isn't always shouted in the streets. Sometimes it's signed in ink, hidden in comfort, echoed in indifference. Thomas's story isn't unique. It's just one reflection of a truth far larger than him, a system built on who gets to look away, and who never can. So as the camera lingers on those twin graves, a question hangs in the air. If seeing pain changes nothing, did we ever truly see it at all?